Hey guys, it's Dereka with Dereka's Designs, and today we are making cute little pumpkin attachments. I have a no-sew version with a witch hat. We have a sewn version with a little top hat, both super cute and ready for your Halloween decor. All right guys, we are back and we are going to make this cute little no-sew pumpkin attachment. He's got this cute little witch hat. You can use a pipe cleaner in the back to attach him to your wreath or whatever you need. You can add more pipe cleaners if you feel like you want it to be a little more stable, but these are pretty lightweight, so I will leave that up to you. So I'm going with both of these patterns we're doing today. I'm going with a very basic orange and black color palette. Guys, have some fun with it. You know, add some leopard print or gingham or just whatever you want to make it look really fun for fall or Halloween. You can, I mean, this one literally to me screams Halloween. The other one with the top hat, a little bit more fall, but that's okay. Have fun with them. I put these eyes on here just for fun, just to see what it would do. It's a little different. I can't say I love it, but then again, I don't hate it. So, you know, it's one of those things. You just have to try different things. Use your imagination on all of this stuff. So, you know me, guys. I don't ever make the same thing twice unless I have, you know, orders for it. So everything turns out different. So, alrighty. So the first thing we're going to do, okay, so I opted not to use the black felt. I'm using a black crushed velvet. It's that real slinky kind of shimmery fabric. You guys use whatever fabric you want though. Don't think you have, this is a little bit more difficult to work with because it does have some stretch to it. But I liked the way it shimmered on the top hat, so I just went with it. And of course I have this stuff on hand. So, but if you have black felt on hand, do it with black felt. Try whatever you want. So you don't even have to make it black. You could use a different color altogether. Let's see. Now I want to show you on the pattern. This is on the page B. I put these little marks in here. And I want you, it's easier for you. This is where your hat fabric is going to butt up to your face fabric. And so what I did was after I cut out my pattern, I put a little notch there, a little notch there, then I took a ruler and just drew across. That's kind of where you want it, because when you put your little brim on there, you want to make sure that where the fabrics meet together is covered. So use that line as your guide for that. Okay, so we're going to start, always start with the hardest pieces. And you know me, anywhere there's a curve or a really harsh turn, that's where I like to start. It just makes it easier. So let's see. So I cut this piece. I'm not quite sure. There we go. So see, I'm going to bring this down to that line, and then I'm going to pull it all up and make sure I have a good, I don't know, 1/2 inch to 1 inch all the way around. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue on this line right here so this doesn't move around on me. So I'm going to take my hot glue, and we're just going to, this is going to be under the brim, so my glue gun is not behaving. So let's try this one. Always have a spare glue gun, always. All right, so that's going to go onto that line right there. And we're just going to tap it. You don't need to, don't make it, if it's eking out, don't get your fingers in it, just like that, okay? And that's just going to hold that in place right there. Now, we're going to use the same method we always have. We're going to start at the tip, basically. We have to stuff it a little bit and then move down, stuff a little bit more, move down, stuff a little bit more. You cannot just go crazy and start stuffing the whole thing. It's just, oh, and we also need to put our pipe cleaner in. Almost forgot. Oops. And I also like to hide the pipe cleaner right back here somewhere too. So none of this it'll all be covered by the brim when we're done with this. Put that pipe cleaner in there. Try to fold it down the best you can. Like they're in the way the entire time you're doing your project, but it's okay. So now we flip it over. That line that we have there is holding the fabric right where you want it. Oops, we're gonna go this way a little bit. So you just set it down, makes it really easy. I have to cut. And you can see, guys, this piece of fabric is just, it's not cut perfectly. You don't have to, if your piece of fabric maybe isn't as big as what I have on the pattern, I mean, just as long as you have enough to fold over, it's okay. So I always say 1/2 inch to 1 inch. But don't be real precise about it. You can always trim it off later, as long as you have enough. So I'm literally just going around this and kind of cutting out this little hole. It's just less that I'll have to trim off later. So we always, make sure you're pulling your fabric where you want it to be. Make it, okay, let me just see if I might just need another glue stick if we have one here. All right. So I recommend using your little detail gun on these little tiny pieces. You don't want a big glob of glue back here. So I like to put some glue on the little tip. And then this is where you have to just kind of be kind of slow and precise about it. Make sure you pull from all 3 sides. I can't even get a hold of it. That's the one drawback to this fabric. It is kind of slippery. And, you know, because it's crushed velvet, it can be a little difficult to work with. So I like the look of it, but I mean, if you just want to use regular felt, or if you have a really cool actual Halloween fabric, I'm going to give this a snip to make sure this folds in properly. You can make the hat out of like a polka dot fabric, you know, anything that is sort of Halloween colors, and just don't think you have to do solid black and orange. That was my base. I thought that would be a good base to do for both of these items, and then you guys just go crazy with it. Have some fun. Okay, so on the outside one, we're not going to snip, but on this inside one, because it's the harsh inside curve, I'm going to put a couple snips in here. Again, not going all the way to the foam board. Like I'm a good 1/4 inch away from that foam board. I don't want the little white triangles from this foam board peeking through a black hat. Honestly, that's just not a very attractive thing. This fabric does have stretch to it, so you can really pull it to make sure you're not going to get those little white triangles poking through. And that takes some practice. You just have to do it, you know, a few times to try to avoid those little white. And if you do find you do have, after you're done, there's a little white triangle poking, just get a Sharpie out or something. Or hot glue a little piece of your fabric to it and then just trim around it so people won't see it. It just gives your work a little more of a professional feel that you took the time to cover up all the little white, especially if you're selling them. Now, if you're used to making it for your own wreath, then, you know, maybe you're not so big. It doesn't have to be that precise, but if you want to sell these, make sure you are putting all the extra effort in. Now, if you can see where I pulled mine, you can almost see that little white tip coming through right there. That is not good. So I am going to, I do have a little bit of scrap fabric here that's kind of hanging. So I'm going to take that little fabric and I'm going to fold it over again. All right, so that little white tip is covered. Now I could have gone back here and pulled this up. It's just hot glued down. You guys can, if you mess up, you can always pull this fabric up off of this. I mean, you just take your fingernail and just pull it. See how it comes right off? Don't worry about not being able to change something after you've glued it down. You absolutely can. I've actually pulled the entire thing off and then redid it. So you can fix a boo-boo if necessary. So I'm going to get my little stick, which I forgot to grab. I'm just going to use a little tiny dowel. You can use a glue stick. You can use whatever you have, chopstick, whatever. But you want something with a blunt end, though, so that it can push the polyfill. And see how we stopped gluing right here at the edge. That way we can push this polyfill in, because obviously if we glue the whole thing, you're not going to get the polyfill in, this tip. And the tip is kind of important. You want the tip of the hat to look good. Now, the pattern of this hat is wavy lines. I did that on purpose because I think it's really cute. When you pull the fabric tight, you can almost see the wavy lines in it. It's kind of hard on my black background here, but I made it so that they were wavy lines to give more of a, I don't know, witchy, kind of old world kind of feel to it. Okay, so we don't have to do all, you don't have to put all of the polyfill in there, but you just want to make sure at least you get the tip. And then now you just go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And each time, make sure you're pulling your fabric to where it needs to be. So this is still a curve. So I'm going to glue probably to about right here. And then I'm going to come in and I'm going to stuff that. We're just going to keep moving around. And that was one of the reasons why I did choose this crushed velvet. is because I did kind of want it to show the wiggle wobble in this hat. Of course, felt will still show it, but this is such a thin fabric that it's definitely going to show it a bit more. So that was kind of the look I was going for. Instead of just cutting a nice straight line, you know, get some wobble in there. Now I'm going to finish up this little curve because we can still stuff this without, this is the part that's important not to, you know, think about, you need to get a straight stick in there. So I'm going to go ahead and finish gluing down this whole center part, and I'm going to stop there. I'm going to cut off these little edges because I just don't like them. Oh, that one doesn't want to cut. Could be my horrible scissors in here, but that's okay. All right, so I'm going to glue a little bit more of this. I'm going to go up to about the top of the hat somewhere. And then we're going to flip it over and polyfill this, stuff it. Okay, so here we go. I'm gonna let it cool a little. I usually, when I'm going and trimming off all this stuff, you know, it's just letting it cool. So by the time I flip it over, it's cool enough that I can stuff it without it coming loose. Now I have a bunch of little bulbs here. I'm going to put a, well, I say I'm going to put a backing on this, but I don't think I brought the extra felt in here again. You don't have to put a backing. It's just totally up to you how you want it. But, you know, if you have a piece of black scrap felt you can put on the back, then when we're all done, you can do that. All right. If you are selling them, I highly recommend putting, you know, taking the extra time to put a backing on everything you make. Just looks more professional, more finished. It is an extra cost to you, but honestly, it's felt. You can use scrap. It's not so much of a cost that it should make a huge difference. Now, I don't know if you can see it. Let's see, do we have something white here? White would be better. We'll just use this. See how this fabric is pushing through all these little lumps and bumps and stuff? That's what I was going for. So this crushed velvet, excuse me, is available at any craft store. They come in a gazillion different colors. It's one of those basics that you can pretty much find anywhere. And during the holidays, I know Hobby Lobby for sure will bring out different colors. I know one year they had a very pretty cranberry that they don't carry all the time, but it was just meant for you know, the Christmas season. And I'm pretty sure they had a mustard yellow and an olive green for the fall season. Those colors they don't carry all the time, but the basics they do carry on their shelves pretty much year round. Now I'm going to go ahead and glue this whole inside of this curve down. We're going to stuff it from over here. So I'm just going to go ahead and glue this side down, trim off a little bit of the excess. And now that we have this one up here, I'm going to trim a little bit more. I like to trim. You guys don't have to. It's such a normal, natural thing for me. Sometimes I forget I'm doing it because it's just the way, you know, I've always done it. So now I'm just going to use my hand to, oops, big old glob. Oops. See, I left this open over here. This whole side over here is glued down. So I'm going to take a small piece, and this, because my hand won't fit over here, I'm going to make sure I get all the way to that side wall over there. Now, you don't need to go really stuffed right here, because remember, this has to go on top of it. You don't want it sticking on polyfill. You want it to stick to the, you know, as close to the board as possible. Otherwise, it could teeter-totter on you, and it would look crooked. So this is the line that I glued down. So I'm not pushing it as far as I can towards that line. Let's just put it that way. Because imagine how thick this is. You really want to make it stick down there, you know, really good and flat. You don't want it propped up where it could possibly, you know, be glued and teeter-totter. Okay, so I'm just going to shove that in there. I'm going to seal almost all the way down. Not all the way, but almost all the way. Now I have too much polyfill in here because I can't pull it closed. So I'm going to take some out. Even though this has stretch to it, I don't want to possibly, you know, stretch it too tight. So, and you know, if you can't pull your fabric over, chances are you have too much polyfill. Just take some polyfill out. As long as you gave yourself a good 1/2 to 1 inch overhang all the way around, you should have plenty. So now what I'm going to do is go in and make sure there aren't any little spots up here, like where I just glued it, there's no polyfill. So I'm going to kind of put it all the way up in that little bump. And then I'm going to put some down here. And now we're just going to kind of fill it to where I feel like we can go ahead and seal it up. So we have some, make sure it's kind of even. This one that I didn't even notice it, but this whole section right here has no polyfill in it. Like the entire top. Do you notice it? Not really. But when I picked it up, I was like, oh Lord, I missed that whole section. It happens. And it's not a detrimental. It's not a life, you know, you don't have to pull it off and redo it. I don't think anybody else would notice it but me. So, you know, it's one of those things. All right, so glue all that down. This crushed velvet is very thin. Glue is going to come through. It's going to burn your fingers. So that's another consideration to using regular felt. If you're very sensitive to getting your fingers burned, you know me, I have Teflon fingers. It does not bother me. But if you are, this may not be the fabric for you, okay? So there we have that part. Now, I just have a big piece of orange, guys. I didn't cut it I didn't cut it around the pattern. It's just a big piece of orange. You don't have to follow the pattern. When it comes to the fabric, you're going to trim all this off anyway. Use a scrap piece, use whatever. Just do not, you know, stress over getting it just perfect. And again, I'm going to put some glue. Oops. This is a huge glue gun. Wowzers. I'm going to take a straight edge and I'm just going to put it on there. And that's going to hold that in place for me. And this one's super easy, right? We're just going to, well, I like to trim it just a little bit before. This was a piece of scrap, so I don't mind throwing all this away. I'm going to trim it now. It just saves me from having to trim it later, but look, that's simple. And now, oops, Mr. Glue Gun. We're going to go all the way down each side, and then we're going to leave the bottom open so that we can stuff it. And this is regular felt, guys. This is the thicker regular felt. Obviously, they come in lots of different colors. If you buy the felt sheets, lots of different things. But unfortunately, the only one you can get off the bolt is this bright orange. Unless you go to Joann's and they have like the Copper Canyon colors and a couple other more muted colors that aren't bright, bright, bright. But don't think you absolutely do not have to use felt for this. You guys know how I love felt though. If you find a fleece or something that's the color you want, then use fleece. It has a little bit of stretch to it, but it's okay. It's not, as long as you take that into consideration when you're putting it on here, it's no big deal. Just like this black up here had a little stretch to it. It's a little more difficult to work with. It's okay, but it was the color that I wanted. So, you make those sacrifices. So I have left the bottom open because we're going to stuff it there. And this is just a big old giant pumpkin head. So just start throwing some stuffing in there. I will use, once I get a good amount of polyfill in there, then I will use the stick to kind of even it out and push it into the corners and do all that. So, and like I said, a large glue stick, the big regular size glue stick works great as a polyfill pusher because it has that like eraser type effect on it. It catches, because it's rubbery, it catches the polyfill and pushes really nicely. So always have a large glue stick in your arsenal. If you don't have a dowel like these. But if not, you can buy these dowels at Hobby Lobby, Walmart, anywhere. Just go into the wood section. They sell dowels in every shape and size you can imagine. If it's a long one, cut it down. Just, cut it in half, break it. I'd have one where I just broke it, and then I used sandpaper to kind of sand the edge down so it wouldn't catch on everything. Simple, easy. Don't Just use what you have. I also use chopsticks. I use stainless steel chopsticks are great when flipping fabric around. I wouldn't use it for polyfill like this, but it's because it's smooth and silky and the stainless steel is, you know, it makes it very easy to flip the fabric around without poking through the fabric, which is what you definitely don't want to do. All right, so now we're going to close this up. Now, if you're more comfortable leaving more than an inch around, then leave more. Like if you want to fold this over and have, you know, a couple of inches to work with, then absolutely. I know a lot of people who make them, who feel like they wouldn't have cut off as much as I did. They would have left more on there or even just left it the way it was. So you can see here, I have this little weird bubble here. I don't like those. So it's just a personal thing. I'm just gonna pull it. It's kind of ooey and gooey because the hot glue is not totally set yet. Throw a little bit of glue. I'm gonna pull it and try to get rid of that little bubble. I just didn't like it. When I look at the face, I didn't want that little bubble sticking out right there. I want it to be round. I want it to be round like the foam board. So, okay. So now we're going to cover the little brim. Again, just to, you can see, I mean, I didn't cut it perfectly by the pattern. It's, you know, square over here, round over here. It doesn't matter. It does not matter. So with this one, we are going to stuff this brim. So I am going to hot glue the warbly end because I had this one all wavy as well. And I'm going to pull the fabric on there. And then I'm going to hot glue these two ends. I'm going to leave just this little bit open right here. I'm going to use my stick to push it in both sides, okay? So I'm going to do this whole line. And just fold the fabric over onto it. You don't need to pull this side because you can pull this side, right? So all you're doing is covering it right now, like that. And then I'm going to take, I'm going to lift up that fabric on that corner there and just kind of go, I don't know, a third of the way. And now you can kind of tug on the fabric to make sure it's going into all the little warbles that I had cut into the foam board. I'm going to trim all this excess off. So when you turn it around, yes, you have that big bulb, which I'll have to put a little bit more glue in there, but it's going to, if you pull it tight enough, it's going to go into each one of those little crevices. I didn't do a lot of warble on this part, but I wanted it to kind of coincide with the hat, kind of match. Okay, so this little end piece, I just kind of pulled it apart. I want to put just a little bit more glue in there. And then I'm going to pull it flat and hold that down. You don't want my corner looking all crazy. You want it to be nice and smooth. And then if you have too much fabric, just give it a trim. And the reason I trim, this is going to be glued down to the head, but if you have glue on one side of the fabric and not on the other, it could possibly cause it to shift around. So I just like to trim off all the excess. So we're going to pull this. Like I said, this is a very stretchy fabric, not the easiest to work with. And the glue definitely pokes through. And then again, I'm just going to put a tiny bit of glue in this little corner piece before I snip it off because I want it to lay down flat. I want it to pull that corner really tightly. Well, I guess I didn't put any glue in there. It's not wanting to stay. Get it in there. Just fold it down. Use your silicone pad or your silicone fingertips or whatever you have to hold this down like that. Alrighty, so now just going to trim off some of this excess. You don't want this, you don't want to glue that excess on there. This down here. All right, so now I'm going to stuff this. We're just going to take little pieces and use the stick to kind of get in these little corners. It's too big. And then and just work it around until you get all the way to the middle here. And then just feel like, I feel like I could just put a little bit, tiny bit more at the top of here before I seal it. You don't want to pack it in there, guys. A lot of people, I mean, they really pack the polyfill in to where, like I said, I always tease, like, I don't need it to where you can bounce a quarter off of it. I really don't. It just needs, polyfill is made to expand. So when you shove it in a little area and then let go of it, it expands, you know, and that's a good thing. That's what you want. So you don't have to just shove it and shove it and shove it and keep shoving more in there. Like I said, until it's so solid, it's just really just a waste of polyfill. You're not allowing it to do what it's meant to do, which is to expand. And you want enough in there to hold your project, but you don't need it to be really. So you can see here, turn it this way, if you can see there's kind of a crevice here where I glued this and then I glued this. So it left this little bit of a, I can't get an angle on this camera here. It left this canal, let's put it that way, about 1/2 inch on this side and 1/2 inch on this side. So I am going to kind of push this in there the best I can to where it's going to be glued and hold all the way down to the board. You don't want it, you don't want too, it can be on the polyfill, but you don't want too much of it on the polyfill. So I'm going to put a good amount of glue on this because I really want it to hold. In this little canal, I'm not going to go over the canal because then it might seep out the sides. Take the, center it, like move your hat so that it's completely straight. Center your brim on it. And then of course you guys know how much I love to use these clips. They honestly are lifesavers to hold stuff down like this. So I don't have to sit and hold it. But if you don't have clips or if you don't have something put on here, you're gonna have to hold this until it's completely cooled. If this thing pops up, it'll probably only pop up one side and then you will have a crooked brim. Okay, so, I mean, now is the fun part. Once you have the basic done, this is where your creativity really comes in. I gave you the pattern, I gave you this silly little face that I created, but guys, come on. You know more than anybody what you want your pumpkin to look like, right? Color, patterns, do fun stuff, like make it your signature piece. I mean, anybody can make this basic orange and black pattern. It's what you do with it. So see, I have some with more of the eyes on it. Like I said, I'm not always 100% totally in love with those, but I did them. And then you can just do plain. Oops. It's just up to you. Like give yourself, you know, the ability to just kind of create how you want. All right, so I am going to show you another little trick. Now on the sewn version, we are going to sew the pumpkin lines in, but I have found on felts and things, a brown, thin Sharpie. Kind of, you can make the, and you can barely see them on him. Barely, well, the light is not, barely see the brown thin line. But if you don't put some kind of pumpkin lines on here, I feel like, I don't know, it just gives it a little more character. So I always do one up the center. Guys, I mean, I'm totally freestyling this. And then I just curve these, and then I start curving them out. And then curve out another one, and you can even curve out another one there. curve out another one. It's such a light, I wish you could see, you can kind of see them. See, it's such a light brown color. It's not bold and in your face, so it doesn't have to be perfect. But now I will glue my face over that, and it just gives the impression more so that it is a pumpkin, right? So I have the ones with the little eyes on it, but I think I'm going to make, because since I have this guy over here, I'm going to make this one with the just dark eyes. You could add those little Google eyes to this. You could do whatever you want. I mean, it's a pumpkin face. Just, and of course you don't need to use this mouth. I had a hard time coming up. I wanted to do something that wasn't, you know, typical. But if you want the typical smiley mouth with the missing teeth, then absolutely draw out a smiley mouth with the missing teeth and have some fun with it. Make it yours. 100% do not have to use these. I just drew these out real quick. Same with the other one. I wanted something a little different to give you guys more options. But you can do clip art, pumpkin face. You can trace the picture, or you can just draw it and copy it. I mean, just do whatever. This is glittered foam. You can use regular felt for this. This is just those glittered foam sheets. And just, you know, I wanted a little bit of pizzazz on this guy. I didn't bring any eyebrows, but he has eyebrows, which I thought looked really cute. Kind of goes with the eye though, with no eyeball on here. I don't know if I'd want eyebrows, because this is more classic pumpkin looking. Okay, so there's that. Take off our clips. I'm sure this is good and cooled by now. And, okay, there's my ground. I have this faux leather fabric, guys. You can use, obviously, if I would look at that sign that I showed you a picture of yesterday on the group that had like buffalo plaid and stuff. Like, have fun with the colors. Have fun with the colors. So the pattern I have here is probably not the same pattern I gave you on the, maybe it is. I don't remember. Let me see. I have so many different buckles, guys. I use different buckles for different things all the time. Okay, yeah. So on your pattern, you have the basic 2-inch or 3-inch by 2-inch square buckle. Works just as fine. Just make sure when you cut your band, you cut it just a little bit smaller. I didn't put the band in this pattern, guys, because it's literally just you could use a strip of ribbon. And then you don't have to cut anything. Don't even take the wire out of it. Just use a strip of ribbon in whatever you want your pattern to be. Just don't overthink that. I did not put this band, literally, you're just wanting it to fold long enough to fold behind, and that is it. So, but because I used this one requires me to fold my band, pull it through, and you know, push it through again. I have so many different, like I said, I just don't, I never remember what to use. So then it gives that impression where you have the fabric inside like that. And again, you use whatever fabric you want. You could even use this foam for your band if you wanted it, you know, glittery or something. And then what I do, I put it about where I want it. And I open up these sides so that I can pull it around like that. And just there we go. That's kind of where I want it. So I'm going to go ahead and just glue down one side of it, and then I'll check the other side and make sure that's where I want it. Oops. And I did not do a very pretty job of this, but it's okay. Normally I'd be covering this like this one. See, it's covered with black felt, so nobody will see your little boo-boos. But I didn't bring the felt in here. Sorry about that. So then make sure your buckle is where you want it. You can slide it around, kind of move it, or just normally, if you're using the other one that I put in the pattern, you would put the band on first and then glue the buckle to it. So that way you can make sure your buckle goes exactly where you want it. This one, I have to look at it this way. I want to make sure it's straight. So it's going to require me to pull it down just a little bit, like that. And the reason being is because we have this curve that we're working with. So the band might have to, it won't go straight across. It has to kind of curve down a little bit, just like that. And then I like to go back and glue down this. I don't want them sticking up and catching on things. I just put a line of glue around all 4 sides, and then I'll hold it. And I'll just, you can grab a piece of silicone or whatever and just hold it so that your buckle adheres to the fabric. It won't take but a minute. And guys, that is it. That is it for this little guy. Now, if I had a big piece of black felt in here, I would just literally lay it across the back, pull the pipe cleaners through, glue it all the way around the edge, just like we always do. Now, you cannot get the glue. I mean, you can cut a little piece to put on the back of the brim because they stick out on both sides. It's totally up to you. But then I would just glue it all down, and you wouldn't even notice all this ugly mess back here. So if I were putting that on a wreath, I wouldn't bother to put it back on it. But if I were selling it, I definitely would. So here we go. There's 2 versions, one with eyes, one and eyebrows, and one without. And you can kind of create them however you like. So have fun with this. Post some pictures. I cannot wait to see what you guys do using colors, using patterns, using all kinds of fun fabrics. Because really, the sky's the limit with this pattern. You can do whatever you want. Go full classic, or add some pizzazz to him. And you know me, I like the pizzazz too. So have fun, guys. Thank you so much. I'll talk to you soon.